Oh, hey, good morning, Eddie. Hey, good morning, Sonny. Looks like Eddie has to scoot pretty quick. That's okay. You can always circle back and rewatch it. Oh, welcome to Into the Foxhole. I don't think I've seen that name before. Yeah, I agree, Sonny. That's a cool name. Ah, harvesting leather. Good idea. Might as well repurpose it. Otherwise, it's going to land in a landfill somewhere, isn't it? That's a great idea. Great idea. Speaking of leather, I love the smell of this saddle grade leather. I got this as a gift from Emma down in Florida. She sent me this whole bag of it. There's a leather place that they end up selling all their scraps. So I get all of their scraps so I can do the sew offs on them. And the saddle grade leather is a beautiful stitching material too. Really fabulous. Beautiful. I think leather smells as good as coffee in the morning. All you need is both. So while our flock is coming together on this fairly early Saturday morning, oh, see, we have some other friends joining us too. We've got the pleasure of Craig, who is Sonny's partner. And we've got Emma now. Welcome, Emma. Yeah, and I decided to involve you guys in the setup that I have to do before I'm able to do a live stream like this, getting all the sew-offs ready, final prep on the machine. We still have to wind a bobbin on this machine as well, which I did intentionally so that folks that are not familiar with the Swedish Beauties can see kind of how that works. Then we have to get the machine threaded up, and then we'll finally get the sewing. And the customer, who is Anders, he goes by Andy also, is going to be driving in a couple hours to pick up his Swedish Beauty today. And this machine is being named in honor and in memory of his late wife, Judith. And so through this live stream, you might hear me, instead of referring to this as a Swedish Beauty, or instead of referring to it as a Husqvarna 2000, I might just say Judith. This will be Judith for purposes of our live stream today. And I want to demonstrate the cam functions of this. So I've got cam D in there. Apparently Anders picked up the other cams as well. I might grab from my box a couple of extra cams that we can test out on this machine as well. Ooh, computer crash. Not sure what happened there. That was weird. I don't know if you guys can see it in the camera shot or not, but this is the 100% cotton that we're going to be sewing over here. We've got these different colors available. We've got purple, kind of a yellow colored. Let's shut that light off. We've got purple, kind of a lighter yellow, darker yellow, almost a raspberry color. It's kind of like a raspberry, isn't it? And then we've got this orange and a light brown and then a green. I got green this time. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 choices. If you guys want to kind of vote on which color I'll set up for our stitch off for cam generated stitches, tell me what color you want me to use out of these. I'll go ahead and grab that one and we'll get that set up with some stiffener. But right now I'm going to cut another hunk of leather. I haven't tried this stuff before. This is a genuine cowhide, and it's got a real heavy nap to it, so we'll have to fold this over when we stitch off on it, probably kind of like that. And then we'll be doing the equivalent of about 10 to 12 ounces of leather. Oh, I dropped that on the floor. We got some veg tan leather too. This is actually real similar in a nap. Actually, this is another type. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, Sonny's voting for the yellow. Now, Sonny, there's two yellows. There is this lighter yellow, and then the darker yellow. Which one are you thinking? Lighter or darker yellow? You can kind of see the two contrasted here. And we're going to be sewing probably with a white thread today, if that makes any difference in your choice. The lighter of the two. Okay, so we'll go with this one here. Let me get these others out of the way. Okay, I think we've got enough. All right, let's get this machine set up to sew. I'm going to let you guys pick the needle today, too. We've got a choice of these leather needles here. These are 9014s and 110 size 18 needles, total harpoon needles. And then we've got our standard Schmetz universal size 9014 needle. So we can either go with a leather needle or with a universal needle. What do you guys think? What should we try today on this model 2000? From 1965, by the way. Yeah, I'll show you the front of it. You haven't had a chance really to see the front yet. Oh, we've got division in the ranks. Emma is saying universal and Sonny is saying harpoon. Harpoon! Sewing 100% cotton with a harpoon needle is always a hoot, isn't it? Maybe we can find a way to meet in the middle. Maybe what we can do is we can sew with one of these by Schmetz. It's a leather sewing needle and it's a size 110, which equates to a size 18. That way, Emma, who wanted a universal, is going to get kind of a universal, and Sonny, who wants a harpoon, is going to get a harpoon. Oh, Emma's saying maybe a small harpoon needle? We need a tiebreaker. Yeah, someone has to jump in. Well, a small harpoon needle would probably be a size 100. That means we could go back to sewing with one of our Hello Kitty needles. That would be a size 100. Here's how we can kind of meet in the middle, I think. Meeting in the middle with one of these Hello Hobby Universal size 100, which equates to a size 16 needle. So we're going to get a universal needle, but a size 100 is in the harpoon class. So we can go ahead and use one of these today. Yeah. And when we're setting this needle on this machine, because our bobbin case is in the front, we're going to be setting the flat side to the rear. We'll be setting the flat side to the rear. Okay. Let's go. Yeah. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, moves won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shoot tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Passing the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes. All right, let's get a bobbin one now. I take shots to the top, I get it. I got one life, I do all the with it. I do what's right, push it till I fall. It's time to get back up, always stand tall, I'm grinning. I got cuts real deep in, bruises scarred. I had to learn how to think with my head, not hard. I've been chewed up, spit out, torn apart, picking up all the pieces of the form apart. You're never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes. Okay, on the Model 2000, when you set it up to wind a bobbin, you're going to set up your thread on the second spool pin over here, and then you have to pull this out. It's normally slid in like that. Go ahead and pull it out, and we'll kind of get our thread going through there. And then from there, we're going to come over to this thread guide down here. This one right here. You come underneath that little finger and then go over the top of that tensioner. Make sure it gets all the way inside of that tensioner. So that's our setup so far for winding. And again, when you slide on a bobbin on these Husqvarnas, it's going to automatically disengage the clutch. There's a little tab that sticks out, and when we slide the bobbin on, it depresses that tab, which disengages the clutch. Now, when you're winding this, if you're not getting an even distribution like we are right now, you can kind of see how even it is. If you're not getting an even distribution, and let's say it's heavier concentrated on the inside, on the left side as we're looking at it, then we have to adjust that tensioner that we threaded through near the back of the machine. So if it's concentrating on the left side, then what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the screw for this, which is right on the back of here. See that little screw point? And then what we'll do is we'll bring this tensioner out just slightly. And what it'll do then is it'll allow that thread to distribute further to the right. If you're getting the opposite effect, and when you get your machine set up or whatever, and this is way out and you're getting a heavy concentration on the right side of the bobbin, then you'll loosen that screw on the back of here and you'll push this back in to try to find that sweet balance where the thread is going evenly across that bobbin and winding as it should. Okay? All right, let's finish winding this and we'll keep moving forward. And you can see this thread up here. I kind of keep my finger on it because he gets real happy and starts hopping. Yeah, we're just about there. I might add just a little bit more. Good. As soon as we take that off, that tab is released again on here, and then it's going to allow that clutch to re-engage as soon as we step on the foot controller. And then another prep point when you're getting set up to sew is, even if you've done regular cleaning on your machine, you'll want to add a little bit of machine oil to a Q-tip swab. And you'll want to make sure that the inside of that bobbin case is nice and clean. I've cleaned this repeatedly through the process after I got done servicing Anders' Husqvarna. And wait until you see how dirty, how quick it gets dirty. Just swabbing the inside. And you also swab the outside of the stem that the bobbin will be riding on as well. Create a little bit of a clean, slick surface to that. And then we're also going to clean on the inside. But before I do that, let me show you the Q-tip swab already. The thread that we get and other elements of the machine are really quite dirty, surprisingly dirty. And then the environment that our sewing space is located in can also contribute to that. You never want to set up near a kitchen, and you don't want to set up near open windows, especially if they're doing work outside, you know, and there's a lot of wind kicking up dust and everything. It's all going to get pulled into your sewing environment and going to get pulled into the machine. So that's just a basic cleaning on that bobbin case. It shows you why you should be doing regular maintenance on the bobbin case as well. So I'm going to start with a Q-tip clean end, and we'll go to the other end going inside of here also, because remember, on the inside of there is where it's going to be mounting to the machine and spinning up from the raceway. So we also want to make sure that that's clean and that that's properly lubricated also. So I'm going to swab it one more time to give us a clean start. But if you've never done maintenance on your bobbin cases before, you really should start. It'll really, really help you out a lot as far as the machine. Now we got into that second Q-tip, and it's not so horrendous, is it? It's actually quite nice compared to that one. And you should be doing that about every, depending on the type of thread you're using and the environment, again, where your machine is located, you're going to want to be doing this probably about every 6 hours of sewing. Keep it nice and clean, nice and clean. Now, as far as orientating the bobbin, does anyone know on these Husqvarnas when we set this up to sew, is the bobbin going to be turning clockwise or counterclockwise? What do you guys think? Hey, if one of the moderators would block that person, please. This naked HD person, if one of the moderators would go ahead and throw that person out, that would be great. I'm not sure who this person is. Naked HDXYZ, you are not welcome here. I'm sorry. Because I think I know what you're promoting. So if one of the moderators doesn't take action, I'll be taking action in about 5 seconds. We've never had problems with somebody like this kind of storming one of our live streams before. That's disappointing. So the answer to the question is, when we load it up for sewing, we're going to want to make sure that that thread is coming underneath the bottom. And as we bring the two together, like so, and we thread it through, we're going to be threading it through right here. Making sure you get it all the way underneath that tension band. We got to draw it all the way underneath that tension band. Otherwise, we're not going to have any type of a top stitch at all. So now I've got it all the way underneath that tension band, and we've got just about the right tension. If you've ever wondered, well, how do you check the tension on a bobbin like that? What a lot of the manufacturers recommend is when you hold the bobbin like this and you just let it dangle almost like a fishing lure, and you give it a gentle little bob like this, it should be enough to allow that thread to hopefully not fall out. It should be enough to allow that thread to start to release. And it just did do that. It's probably hard to see that on the screen, but we've got just about 3 to 5 ounces of reserve tension on there. That's going to help us create that top stitch. So as it's mounted in the machine, if we kind of turn it, you can see that the bobbin is going to be turning counterclockwise. So if you imagine it's inside of the machine like this, as that thread is coming out, it'll be turning counterclockwise, just so you can set up your machine correctly when you're getting ready to sew. I'm just going to swab the inside of that raceway too, as dirty as that bobbin case was. So the inside of the raceway isn't too bad. It got a little bit off of there, but all in all, it's pretty clean. So let's get our bobbin case in. And if you ever try sliding the bobbin case in and it doesn't slide in easily, just do a little rotation on your balance wheel, and then it'll snap into place very nicely. All right, let's get this machine threaded up now. So I'm going to show you kind of off the top. We got our spool pin back here. And again, the reason you have 2 spool pins, arguably, is one is primarily for bobbin winding in conjunction with this thread guide here that you can pop out when you're winding a bobbin. And also because this machine is capable of dual needle or twin needle sewing. So if you're feeding 2 threads, you're going to put 1 spool of thread here, 1 spool of thread here, and then thread those 2 going through the machine. And as we come off the top, we kind of come through this rear thread guide right here, then across the top of the machine through that thread guide. And then we're going to be coming through our tension discs next. And always make sure your presser foot lever is in the up position when you're threading a machine so that there's no pressure on those discs. Otherwise, you're not going to get that thread all the way between those tension discs, and you're going to have issues with balancing your tension. So I'm kind of coming through those discs now, and I always make it a habit of kind of holding on to the thread on top so I can really make sure that I draw it all the way through those discs. And then you come over the top of this little take-up spring right here. You can kind of see that. I think you can see that. Let me shut that light off. So that spring is going to be reacting. And again, what this spring does is it just for a microsecond releases that tension so that thread can advance and the sewing process can continue. And also as it's swinging back up, you can see right now as it's swinging back up, what it's going to be doing is it's going to be pulling that knot tight. So we've got a nice finished stitch on the bottom of that material, that lock stitch. That's kind of what this does. And then again, on these Husqvarnas, as far as this take-up spring, there's a little tab on the bottom of here that we can adjust depending on the type of sewing we're going to be doing. If you have it all the way in the, I'll just say probably like around the 3 o'clock position, you're going to be sewing on lighter materials. As you move it towards the bottom, towards the 6 o'clock position, you're going to be sewing on a lot heavier materials. And it allows control over how far that take-up spring is going to be sweeping. It's kind of what it does. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of weird that we had somebody crash our live stream, isn't it? That's really, really disappointing. And I don't know if Emma did it, but I'm also going to click on here for our naked HD XYZ person and also throw them into timeout. And it's possible Emma already did that. Well, that's a bummer, isn't it? No matter where you go these days. All right, let's get this machine threaded up the rest of the way. So we've already come through here. We then go underneath this thread guide, and then we go up to our take-up arm from there. And you're going to be threading your take-up arm from right to left. And it seems silly to have to say that because it seems like it would be common sense, right? But on some machines, you actually have to thread the take-up arm, which is this right here. You have to thread the take-up arm from left to right. There's a couple of domestic machines like that, domestic rotaries. And then that other hole on top would be for the second thread if you're doing twin needle type sewing. I think you can see that. Then we're going to follow down to here, thread through this thread guide. Then we have another thread guide right down here. And then finally, I always lower my presser foot because it makes it a little bit easier. And then finally, we're going to thread from front to back. Get that needle a little bit higher. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I just I got distracted and I ended up threading the bobbin thread through there. What a hoot. All right, let's try that again. There we go. And then bring it underneath the presser foot to the rear. And then you'll hold on to the thread just like you would on any machine. Rotate your balance wheel to the front. And you probably couldn't hear it, but there was just a little click as that clutch re-engaged as we turned the balance wheel. Our thread just popped up, so we'll drag that to the back. All right, let's get ready with some of this 100% cotton, but I'll do a couple of stitch offs on leather first just to get us going. Let me move this back over here. Does anyone have an opinion? Do you guys want, this is obviously set up where we can use it as a free arm machine, but we also have this extension bed. Any preference on extension bed, off or on? I'm guessing folks are going to probably want it on. And I'll also show you something else real quick so I can move these out of the way. On this particular model 2000 from 1965, and I'll ask you guys a question as well. Does anyone know what year the Viking Husqvarna model 2000 was first introduced? What year was this model first introduced? And was it true or false? Was it the first or a later model in the Colormatic series? So 2 questions. When did they first introduce this model, the Viking 2000? And was it or was it not the first model in the Colormatic series for Viking Husqvarna? So if anybody knows that, type it in the chat, because that's important information to know about the machine history, its inception and everything like that. Well, what I'm going to show you is on this particular machine, there's technically 3 belts. There's going to be a timing belt that is cogged, and it's going to be more cleated than cogged, I should say. It's going to be more of a cleated style belt. And it's going to be on the rear of the machine, right about in the center. And then on the far right side of the machine, you're going to have a long belt like this. It goes over the balance wheel, and then it goes down to that bobbin winder. And typically, they're going to be set up with this V-style belt. It's a standard V-style belt. The only thing I don't like about these is because of the power output of a machine like this, they tend to get glazed pretty quick, especially if folks don't set the machine up correctly, and the belt is slipping when the machine kicks off. And Sonny, don't feel bad. A lot of folks don't know the particulars as far as this model and what was the first model in the Colormatic series. Well, the answer is this model was first introduced in 1960. 1960 is when this model first rolled out. See, I got a little spot on the front of there from moving the machine around. So this was first introduced in 1960. So Anders' model that we're looking at today on screen came on the scene about 5 years after the first model 2000 was rolled out of the factory in Sweden. And this was the very first machine in the Colormatic series. There were so many other machines that followed it, from the 2000 to 3000 series, the 5, the 6, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this was the beginning of all of that, where Husqvarna said, we want to make it really easy. We want to make it really easy for the end user. So for the end user, all they're going to have to do is take these 3 knobs and match the same color, and it's going to stitch that particular stitch pattern that's on the cam that they have in the machine. And again, today we've got cam D because that's the one that Anders sent with the machine. So these are the stitches on the far right that we're going to be stitching today. And we'll stitch it on cotton. We'll stitch them on leather. We'll put this machine through the paces and test it to see how well
I've done in preparing it. And not just preparing the machine is from a service standpoint, but it also was damaged and limping when it came to the workshop as well. And it was limping because the machine was, as you would see in the photos on Facebook, was absolutely filthy. This machine had never gotten any serious maintenance, had never been serviced in any significant way. Oh, hello to Michelle. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Michelle missed, I think Michelle is just joining us now, and she missed the fun of our live stream being invaded by Naked HD XYZ, some sort of I'm guessing some sort of a porn site or something. And I'm glad that Emma and Sonny are here because they went after this guy pretty quick. And they deleted messages. I'll probably also ban this person from the YouTube channel as well, but we'll see if they pop up again and then we can deal with them. So, but it happens, doesn't it? So again, this machine is powered by a long belt. This is going to be going over the balance wheel, going across the bobbin assembly. And then the short belt on this particular model is different than you've seen on other machines. Let me show you. On most of the Husqvarnas, it's going to have a machine belt like this, similar to this. It's a standard V belt that goes between the output pulley on the motor and the bobbin winding assembly on the middle of the machine that's going to control so many different functions on the machine. But on this particular model, the 2000 from 1965, they went with a cog belt similar to this. And they went with a belt like this because they wanted to have better traction. So the output pulley itself has matching cog points, and then the bobbin winding assembly on the other end has matching cog points as well. So you get the equivalent of positive traction as this machine spins up. The only problem is this. The only problem is they don't make these anymore. They don't even make them aftermarket. So once you run out of the resources of these smaller cog style belts, you're stuck with having to convert the motor and the bobbin assembly then over to a standard V style belt, which is not the end of the world. It's very doable, but for the average sewist, they may not feel comfortable doing that. So if you run into that situation, let me know, and I'll do my best to help you out. Okay. Okay. So the other thing I do is when I set these machines up and I've serviced them in the workshop is I also replace this long belt that's a standard V belt with a matching cog belt like this for the long belt. And the benefit of this is it's got a lot more longevity, and it's also going to provide better traction because the pulleys for the long belt are standard pulleys. They're not cogged. So this is going to bite into those pulleys a little bit better and give us really, really solid traction as we're launching into various sew-offs. So if your Husqvarna comes into the workshop and it needs a belt, it's going to get one of these, not one of these standard V-style belts. Okay? There we go. We're so close to starting. We're so close. And then the other issue that Anders' machine had is this is the cam stack that's in the back of machines like this Viking 2000. Over time, what happens, let's see if that light helps a little bit. Over time, what happens is as you are repeatedly taking that cam and plugging it in and pulling it out, plugging it in, pulling it out, changing cams, etc., is this is just a thin gauge plastic right here. And you can see that crack right on top. It cracks all the way through. And then what happens is as that cam is trying to turn, it's slipping on this mounting stem. And then you get all kinds of wonky things as far as stitch output. So this was one of the other things that we did to Anders' machine when it came into the workshop. And again, this is a pretty common thing within the class machines like the 2000s and some of the other later Colormatics that have this style of cam stack. And I keep hearing my phone go off. I don't know who it is, though. I'm going to ignore it for right now. All right, I didn't see if there was a preference, so I'm going to go ahead and put our extension bed on. The only thing that'll make it more difficult is it'll make it a little bit more difficult for us to get closer to the camera, but we'll do our best. And I had not tried to put this on yet. It is really stiff. Good gravy. I think I've got it in place pretty much. Feels like I do. Okay, good. And you can see why these Swedish beauties, whether they're the green machines or whether they're these later model 2000 series machines like Anders, you can see why they're so desirable. I mean, when you look at it from the front, look at that harp space right in here. Look at that extension bed as far as turning materials. And this is why Husqvarnas are such a coveted, desirable machine for sewists that have multiple machines. They really are one of the earliest versions of a long arm quilting machine. They really are like a long arm quilting machine. And I've referred to them that way before because of this incredible workspace that you have. Incredible workspace. I'm actually going to I've got an LED light on this machine right now, but it's doing some weird things. So I'm going to see if I can kind of change the camera angle and we'll kind of come from over here. That way we don't get that waviness on the screen as much. Looks like we might be getting a little bit of it, but not bad. I'm going to keep that light off. Okay. Let's do some sewing finally. Who in heaven's name is just, they're pinging me left and right. Hopefully it's not that X-ray person. Hold on one second. Okay, these are not time sensitive. So I'm going to silence my phone for right now so we don't keep hearing it go off. Okay, so let's do some sewing on this machine, finally. Now, some of the other unique features about the Husqvarna, if you're not familiar with it, is it also has what's called a jam-free raceway. And the jam-free raceway gives the machine the capability of running with much heavier threads than a standard household sewing machine. And it gives you the ability to run these threads without having to make drastic tension adjustments and without jamming the raceway. That really is always the challenge. Whenever you're running thread, especially from the top down, and you're running and working with heavier threads, and it has to take that course through the tension discs and through all those thread guides and then through the needle and everything else, you run into all kinds of issues. Not so with the Husqvarna. And then it also has that slow gear as well, which a lot of people love that. A lot of people love the slow gear. See, I could be so much closer if we didn't have this extension bed on. Does anyone mind terribly if we take the extension bed off? Because you've seen what it looks like with the extension bed. It's fabulous. But when you're trying to do a camera shot, I can get about 10 inches closer, almost 10 inches closer to the action with this bed off. So I'm going to be a rebel and take the bed off for now. It's a beautiful bed. I love it. But it also gets in the way a little bit when I'm trying to use it with the camera. Yep. So let's move that out of the way for right now. Now we should be able to get the camera a lot closer to the action. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this saddle grade leather. I cut this during the beginning of the live stream. And what I want to demonstrate is the power of that slow gear. And when I say power, I'm also dispelling a myth. A lot of people will talk about this slow gear in different groups on Facebook and other things like that, and they'll describe it as a power boost. They'll talk about it giving the machine more power. That's not true at all. all this does is it gears the machine down so that it reduces the speed from full speed to, what do you think? Type it in the chat. And except for Emma, because Emma, I think, got this answer right the other day. So we're going to exclude Emma from this. And if anyone else wants to guess, does it reduce it by 4/5, by 3/5, by 2/5, or even more? How much does it reduce the speed of the machine when we grab this and we pull it out like that? So I just pulled it out. Any guesses? How much can we reduce the speed of this machine? How far can we take it down as far as speed? Sonny's saying right around 1/3. So, and that would be pretty impressive. 1/3. That would be dropping it by more than 20%, almost 30%. And Michelle gave her blessing, which I appreciate. She said, "Go take the bed off, Scott. Take the bed off, man. Don't worry about it." So the answer is, when we pull this out like it is right now, we take this machine from full speed down to, wait for it, all the way down to 1/5 of the speed that it normally would be going. That means we reduce it by a factor of 5. We take it from full speed all the way down to 1/5. We take it down by a factor of 5. So that is dramatic. And you'll see that dramatic speed reduction as soon as I step on the foot controller. It's crazy how much it gears it down. But all it does is reduce the speed of the machine. It does not change the power factor. Does anyone know what size motor this Model 2000 from 1965 comes with? And actually, it's the same motor that was put on the machine when it was first introduced in 1960. Exactly the same motor. So what kind of motor does this machine have? What are we going to be running with today as far as power? What are we going to be running with as far as power today? And while you're deciding that, we're going to start stitching. And Sonny is saying about a horsepower. And Emma is saying 1.7 amps. Michelle is saying 1 amp. Those are all great answers. All great answers. But I will tell you that the largest motor that Husqvarna ever put in any of their machines, until you get into a light industrial class, was 1.5 amps. So 1.7 is probably what that 1.5 amp would peak at. But this particular machine, Michelle is absolutely spot on. This machine comes with a standard 1 amp Swedish motor. Now, when it comes to motors, understand that motors are built like cars or anything else. They're built to a quality standard, depending on the materials that they use and the quality of how they put those materials together. I have seldom found a motor that has more power rated at 1 amps than a Swedish sewing machine. They are crazy strong when it comes to the way they do the stator wraps and everything on the motor. Every component of it is engineered to a quality standard that is just off the charts. So this machine should be able to handle anything that we throw in front of it today. Anything at all. All right, let's get going. Now I'm going to turn the music down a little bit more. I don't think it's real loud. And I want you to listen to this machine run. I also want you to listen to the harness sound of it being held back by that gear reduction. You're going to be able to hear that the motor is running faster than the machine, and that's the function of that gear down process. So what I'm going to attempt to do, is I'm going to try to stitch around the edges of this leather like you've seen me do before, and then I'll leave the rest of this leather for Anders to sew on once he picks up the machine afternoon today. I think he's going to be here right around 12:30-ish. And again, he's traveling in probably about 2.5 hours, I think, to the workshop to get his machine back. So, all right, here we go. Listen up. Listen to this machine run. Here we go. Oh, I just noticed something. I'm going to go to a longer stitch length. Hold on a second. I'm on 2.5 right now. Let me get that needle out of the material. So we're going to start out with shorter stitches, and then we're going to go longer. I'm going to lengthen these out a little bit more. All right, here we go again. Going to check all my other settings. All right, we're good. And again, when you're using the slow gear, I mentioned this in another premiere, when you're using the slow gear and it's engaged like it is right now, when you try to turn that balance wheel, when we're at this point right now where I want to rotate that needle down and turn the material and get going down this track over here, that balance wheel locks because of that gear reduction. So don't force it. Just take a second, push this in, and then that balance wheel loosens straight away very, very nicely. And then we're able to turn it very, very easily. All right, so I'm going to re-engage it again now. We'll get back over by the material and we'll finish stitching this material off. And the next couple of times I have to do this as I'm turning this material, I won't necessarily show you exactly what I'm doing. I'll just go ahead and do the same thing. All right, press your foot down. Let me clip this thread real quick while I'm thinking about it. All right, again, give a listen to this machine. This is the wonder of Swedish engineering with this slow gear, giving you so much control. Even I can steer this pretty straight with that slow gear. Here we go. So I'm going to stop right there. And what I'm doing off camera, I'm taking that slow gear out, rotating my balance wheel down. I'm going to re-engage the slow gear, and then I'll go ahead and rotate that material so we can get on this next side. And to contrast a little bit, you've heard that machine power being harnessed back, right? You can clearly hear when that machine power is being harnessed back. I'm going to sew this next stitch line at full power, and you'll be able to see I'm going to really struggle. I'm going to really struggle with trying to keep this puppy straight because of the speed factor. All right, full speed. I shouldn't say full speed without the benefit of the slow gear, and it'll become a little bit more of a challenge for me, quite a bit more actually. That is a contrast, isn't it? And that's why folks love that slow gear feature. And there's a lot of machine manufacturers that came out with similar concepts, but a lot of those were not gear reductions. They were basically a power boost to the motor where you would flip a switch on, like on some of the Necky machines have those as well. Oh, I can see that my tension is not adjusted properly. I'll show you what I mean. And then we will go after this again. Let's take a look at these stitches. And then what I'll do is I will stitch around the inside of this leather again once we make a tension adjustment. But this is again highlighting the fact, you know, as you change through a diverse field of materials, you've got to be aware that there may be some tension factors that present themselves, especially depending on your setup. Today, again, we're set up with one of those off-brand Hello Hobby size 100 universal needles. They're kind of an unknown brand right now compared to a Schmetz or say an organ needle. And so we've tried them a couple times. Generally, they've done okay, but they're not 100% when it comes to delivering. I mean, like anything. Now our top stitch looks great. And that top stitch again is a product of the bobbin case, right? That top stitch is a product of the bobbin case and the tension setting that we chose for that. So some beautiful stitching, beautiful, beautiful stitching. But we run into a problem as soon as I turn this material over because my tension is set low right now because I was doing some cotton sew offs with it. just kind of show this to you as well. So some beautiful, beautiful top stitching. The top stitching is fabulous. But when I turn it over, we all of a sudden discover that our lock stitch is loosey-goosey, really loosey-goosey in some areas. Now down here, we did pretty well. But then when we turned this corner, we started to loosen up a little bit right there. Over here, we got really loosey-goosey over in this area. See that? And you'll get that sometimes where if the tension is set a little bit too low for the material you're working with, you'll get some stitching that's just dead on. It looks really good. But then as that sewing process continues to occur, the discrepancy between the upper and lower tension all of a sudden becomes evident like it was right here. So we're going to try this one more time, and I'm going to make an adjustment on the upper tension. And again, if you get into the upper ranges of upper tension and you still can't get that balance factor, what you might have to do then is pull that bobbin case out again and take a little bit of the power away from the bobbin case. You'll turn the tension screw on the bobbin case counterclockwise about 1 millimeter at a time. But here we're going to try to make the difference up here. So I'm going to go from 5 right about up to 6, and we'll see if that corrects the issue. Otherwise, I might have a bad needle too. Have to take that in consideration because it's not a Schmetz needle. Not a Schmetz needle. All right, so let's try sewing on the inside of this. We'll go around as best as we can. And we'll see if we can get a better stitch result for that lock stitch this time. And I'll try doing this with full speed. I'll just try to manage the speed through the foot controller. And we'll get this done on this saddle grade leather. Here we go. Whoops. You see how we kind of paused there hitting that leather? I'm almost wondering if we got a bad needle. We get a bad result again as far as the lock stitch quality. I'm going to change this needle out. Ooh, I went kind of crazy there. See, there's the benefit of that speed gear again, the speed reduction gear. All right, here we go. Let's go down this final line. Okay, that's more in line, but still I'm getting a little bit of a weirdness about it. I might end up abandoning this hobby needle and taking us back to a Schmetz needle. Because again, the hobby needles are still kind of evolving. But you can see we definitely got a better result on that inner stitch line that we did than on the outer one. More consistency as far as that stitch output, especially when you contrast it from this to that. So I think we're on the right course. I don't know. I'll probably stick with this needle just a little bit longer because it's brand new out of the case and we've used them before. But again, I'm just a little bit skeptical about this. We'll see. All right, let's go over to some other leather sewing now. Yeah, the top stitch is spot on. The top stitch looks really good. And the top stitch, again, is going to be a product of the bobbin case down here, pulling down. Again, if you're brand new to sewing, as you're looking at the sewing machine, and we're talking about tension, this unit up here, the upper tension is going to be pulling up. The bobbin case here is going to be pulling down, and they're in a constant tug of war like this, going back and forth to try to get that knot right in the center of the material. And if this is pulling too hard, then that knot is going to be higher to the surface, and we're going to get a beautiful looking lock stitch, but our top stitch is not going to be so grand. And it looks like Naked HD is back again, you guys. Go ahead and get this person. Somebody go after Naked HD, one of my moderators. Maybe Sonny will go after them again. Or wow, that was quick. Well done. Sonny threw you into a timeout there, Naked HD. So why don't you go somewhere else? Because you're just going to keep getting thrown into a timeout and you're going to get banned from this channel. Go play somewhere else with your smut. We don't need your smut here, my friend. Okay, so let's do some more leather sewing. See, isn't that the blessing? Isn't that the blessing of having Emma and Sonny and Paula and Bill? While I'm over here focusing on the machine, I might totally miss for a while when one of these knuckleheads tries to bring their smut into our circle. But Sonny and Emma and Bill and Paula are watching for that kind of stuff. So I think we'll just have to probably ban this person from the channel. And I'm just taking a quick second here to also report this user in trying to show you. I just sent a report to YouTube. I think you can see that. So even YouTube has community guidelines, and we're big enough on YouTube that when we send a report like this, they pay attention to it pretty quick. But in the meantime, Emma and Sonny and the other moderators can keep an eye on this ding dong. I'm just looking real quick to see if there is a. I know there is a ban button because I've used it in the past, but I haven't done it so long. I'll have to look at this afterwards so we can keep moving forward. Yeah, I'll have to look at it afterwards. I can Google it as well. Or somebody, if one of the leaders wants to Google banning a participant in a live stream, then you just type it into the chat and I'll look at that afterwards. But I'm going to keep us moving forward for right now. And you can just keep throwing this this ding dong into timeout if they keep resurfacing again. Okay. Let's get this. I'm going to move over to some cotton because I'm kind of watching my time too. Let's see here. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of take a step away from the leather for a second. And I think I will just to be safe. I'm going to go ahead and change out our needle. You know, that's the thing when you have a new product manufacturer like this Hello Hobby needles that are being sold through Walmart and other venues. They will probably 90% of the time, they're going to have some very good quality standards, especially when they're a new product, because they're going to want to make sure that that product is just bang on. But when it comes to when it comes to absolute consistency, you're talking about companies uh, more like Oregon and Schmetz, where they are probably 90. They're 99.9% of the time going to have absolutely flawless needles, exactly as they should be. So I've taken us back to a Schmetz needle. It's kind of my go-to needle. You guys know that. Well, you think about all the live streaming that we've done and the premieres that we've done. I don't think we've ever been invaded before by one of these smut pushers coming into the live stream. I've heard about it happening on those programs that they use for like doing office meetings and stuff, where someone will invade that and all of a sudden start doing nasty things on the screen. But we've never had that problem before. Maybe that's what happens when you continue to get a larger and larger audience as you more of a target, become more of a target for people like that. Kind of a shame, isn't it? Oh, that is our owner that just popped on you guys. That's Anders. Anders is the owner, and he also goes by Andy sometimes. Goes by Andy, so I don't think he would mind if you called him Andy or Anders. And he's the gentleman that is en route to the workshop right now. En route to the workshop to come and pick up the machine that we're live streaming right now. Amid the leadership team battling some smut master that's trying to infiltrate our ranks. All right, give me just a moment. I'm going to get us set up for some decorative stitching on Anders' machine. Temporarily turn our music up. I remember during one of the live streams, I think it might have been Joel. Joel joined the live stream or the premiere, whatever it was. I don't recall. And Sonny, and I know Sonny won't mind me sharing this. Sonny mistakenly threw Joel into a timeout, which was absolutely hilarious because Joel is part of the Cow Country family. She's not one of these people like this naked HG blah blah blah, whoever this knucklehead is. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Sonny. Yeah, and I would just say every time you see this guy pop up, just keep throwing him back into a timeout. And if someone wants to research banning somebody from a live stream on YouTube, or I can reach out to YouTube directly and ask them. But I've already reported, I showed you on the screen, I've already reported this person to YouTube and said that he's violating the community guidelines. You know, if he wants to promote his smut, let him promote it on his own, not through our channel. So, all right, almost got this set up. And I'm going to go with this light yellow that Sonny picked out. All right, almost got it. Almost got it. Well, hopefully, folks that were recipients of getting, oh, there he is back again, huh? This person is very determined, but not nearly as determined as the moderating team. This person's just spinning their wheels. They're going to keep getting thrown into timeouts. But I agree with Sonny. These people are pretty clever. They can come up with alternate screen names too and keep trying to disrupt our activity on the channel. Okay, I finally have this in place, I think. Go ahead and stitch off on this now. So this is 100% cotton. These are available at most retailers. They are going to be usually in the form of fat quarters that quilters use. And it's a real good quality, not quite a Kona cotton quality, but it's a very, very nice quality cotton. Very, very nice quality. Yeah, exactly. I saw Paula here. I thought I saw Paula here just briefly. But yeah, oh my gosh. Between Paula and Emma and Sonny, this idiot that's promoting his or her smut. I shouldn't say his smut because there are some women in the circles that are profiting from pornography and stuff as much as men are, for goodness sakes. But whoever it is, they don't have a chance. And I know that they can hear me right now. So I'm just going to say to you, give it up. Give it up because these ladies are going to jump on this every single time your ugly head pops up. They're going to be throwing you into a timeout box. So you're not going to make any headway, and then we're going to find out how to ban you from the channel. So, all right. So again, we have decam. We have decam in Anders' machine right now. This one right over here. So we can either do the blue stitch, the yellow stitch, the red stitch, or the green stitch first. Do you guys have any preference on what order we do them in? Either green, red, yellow, blue, or blue, yellow, red, green. So if anybody has a preference on the stitching, whether we go blue through green or green through blue, I'll go ahead and do them in that order so we can check out the cam generation on this machine as well. And if you ever decide to become incredibly adventurous and you want to try to change a cam stack on your own, just realize that when you change that broken cam stack, it's going to throw a number of things off on the machine. Anything from feed dog adjustments will be needed to tri motion, just a variety of different things. Just a variety of different things. So Emma's saying green first. Oh yeah, I heard there was some bad weather going through Florida. Matter of fact, I was chatting with Emma early this morning, and she said there was some pretty heavy rain down near her in Florida too. So that might be the factor. That might well be the factor. Oh my gosh. Anders is sharing something that I usually frown upon, but it's kind of well suited for this setting right now. He's talking about the steel that he got on this machine, even though it had issues. Um, Even with the investment that he's made into the machine, it is still well within the bounds of what the machine is worth. So, all right, so let's put this to work now, and we'll start with the green one. So we got to set all of our knobs to green now. And again, whenever you're turning any of these knobs, make sure that you go ahead and have that needle out of the material, because that needle is going to be moving as you're adjusting. So we're setting the first one, which is our stitch control, our stitch output control, to green. Now we have to take our stitch length, which is right over here, and we have to adjust that to green as well. And you'll notice that some of these stitches will have a range. They'll have a range. For example, right now we're in the green area on the stitch length, but we can go way to the left, we can go way to the right and make it shorter, which I'll probably elect to do. I'll probably set it like right about there, right about in that range. So if you have a Swedish Beauty similar to this and you set it on the color, realize that on some of them you'll have discretion in making it longer or shorter. So I'm going to make it just a little bit shorter. And then finally we come down to the stitch width control, and we have to turn this all the way to the point where it's going to also be in the green range also. And the other feature that this machine has, I'm not a user of it, but the other thing that this machine will do is it will also do auto buttonholes too. And you accomplish that by pulling this stitch width knob out. And then there's 3 stages that you click through in order to generate a perfect buttonhole with this Model 2000. Again, I'm not a user of that, but some people do like that feature on this machine. And I didn't point it out, but you guys are so smart. Down here is our feed dog drop. It's going to be different than the green machines that have that little black knob that we turn down to the 6 o'clock position. With this one, you depress it, it drops the feed dogs, and then you push it again to make those feed dogs pop back up again. Good. So green, 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 we should be good to go. And we will give this a try. I'm going to back away a little bit so that light isn't fluttering on us. Let's see if that helps a little bit or hurts. Yeah, that makes it much worse. That makes it much worse. I've got all kinds of things falling off screen here. This is pretty crazy. Okay, I think we're ready. So again, we have Cam D in the back of Anders 1965 Viking Husqvarna Model 2000. And we're going to be sewing, first of all, the green stitch. We'll see what we think of this one. And we do have a fresh, our setup is a little bit different than we started with. What we started with is, we started with one of those Hello Hobby generic needles that are being marketed now through Walmart and through other venues. We've used them on other live streams and they did fairly well, but we're getting some mixed results with it. So I switched it out for a Schmetz size 9014. And the thread we're using is, I didn't show you guys the thread. I'll show that to you real quick. The thread we're using is a dual duty Coates and Clark type thread. I think you can see that all purpose. You can kind of see it, but not really. All right, let's try this out. And I'm going to turn the music down so you can listen to this. Listen to this Swedish Beauty run. No, that's okay. That's okay, Anders, making me frown. No, the reason, and I'll just do a quick little sidetrack here. The reason that I, especially within our family of Cow Country, the reason I always encourage Cow Country family members, if they get a great deal, God bless them. You know what? I've even had conversations with Paula and Sonny where they found a machine they know is a treasure machine on Facebook Marketplace or maybe on one of the other sales venues. And they've reached out to the seller and explained to them the significance of that machine, whether it's a 201-2 that was used by Rolls-Royce or whether it's a Swedish Beauty like this that's marked down to a price that's ridiculous. And even after the counsel of, one of our family members, talking to somebody out there selling a machine, to raise their price, they still won't raise it. In that case, we've done our job. We've tried to tell them they've got a treasure. It's worth a lot more than they're trying to sell it for. And Paula and I even did that recently collaboratively with a Facebook marketplace listing for a 201-2. But sometimes the people, they don't care. They might be uh, grandkids or kids or someone else that acquired the machine when the other person passed away, and they just don't care. They just want to get rid of the thing. Well, in situations like that, or at estate sales or auctions, you sometimes run into a machine that is priced well below what its value is, and you get a deal. But I don't encourage promoting it, because then it cheapens the intrinsic value of what those machines are perceived as by people that are outside of the family, people that are still getting curious about vintage sewing machines, but they don't have the knowledge about the vintage sewing machines. They don't understand the quality of construction, and that a machine like Anders Model 2000 that we're looking at right here, that a machine like this today, if you tried to make it in a factory, it would be about a $3,000 machine. Now, that's not what they would sell it for, but that would be their cost to produce a machine like this, would be really close to $3,000. So then they would have to mark it up and sell it for $4,000 or something like that in order to make a profit on it. So when we have machines like this that are engineered to the standard that our vintage sewing machines are, we want to really educate people and inspire them to see the intrinsic value. And when they see a machine in a sales venue that's ridiculously low price, it should almost be offensive to them, and it should be offensive to us, because it's like people are cheapening the value of our vintage treasures when they sell them super duper cheap. Hopefully that makes sense. And I don't want to harp on that too much. And I'm not being critical of our owner at all, because I think it's a celebration when you get a great deal on a machine of this caliber, even though it needs help. All right, blah, 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 blah. Let's sew, finally. Yeah, see, that messes it up. All right, here we go. So give a close listen to Anders' machine. And again, we're sewing with a Schmetz needle. Yay, I love Schmetz needles. Here we go. And again, it's tempting when you're dealing with a decorative stitch like this. It takes a lot longer to generate, to push or pull. Don't do it. Just guide it gently and let the feed dogs do all of the work. And that's something else I'll show you real quick when we're done doing this stitch line. I am not sewing very straight, sort of. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, I probably should have gone a little bit longer on this one. I almost kind of bunched it up at the end. So adjusting presser foot pressure on these machines, you just open the faceplate right here. And you can see we've got on this Model 2000, we've got a quick release where we can take all the pressure away. If we push this tab in, there's no pressure foot pressure right now at all. And you sometimes will do that if you want to cheat to get something super thick underneath the pressure foot, because when you release it completely, you can then push this up and down and get a crazy amount of clearance underneath the pressure foot. And then to re-engage it, you just put your thumb on the bottom of here. Let me get the camera adjusted again. You put your thumb on the bottom of here and your finger on the top of here and pinch the two together. And then it locks back into place again with the presser foot pressure engaged again. Now, right now, we've got a pretty high level of presser foot pressure on there. I can feel that when I raise this. So if you want to reduce it, you can rotate this dial to the rear and it's going to decrease it a little bit. I think we were a little bit heavy on there. Okay. So with that slight adjustment, I'm actually going to restitch that sew off one more time. And I'm also going to make it just a little bit longer. Because I want to have a result that represents how this machine is able to stitch, not something that's a little bit off because I didn't have the settings quite right. All right, let's get that back into place again. And what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to lengthen this just a little bit. Actually, the reverse, I apologize. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. No, I was right the first time. You tell I had too much coffee today. Yeah, let's go right about there. I think that's a good distance. Green, green, green. Let's sew this one more time. All right, here we go. There we go. It's amazing when you just make a subtle adjustment, all of a sudden the stitch just comes to life. You're not going to be able to see it right now because that screen is doing some sort of a weird waviness. Let me shut that off. Yeah, that doesn't help either. Let's turn this on. Really having some crazy lighting issues going on today, so I apologize for that. Oh, that looks a lot nicer. That's a lot more of the output that we're looking for on Anders' machine. Okay. And I will zoom in on this at the end so we can look at all of these. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so now we're going to move to the next stitch. Again, the vote from Emma was, let's go green, red, yellow, blue. So we just did the green stitch. And now we're going to go to the red stitch next. So what changes do we have to make? We need to change the stitch selector to red. This is already in the red range. You can see that it's red-green range. So we're good to go here. And this is also on the rainbow setting, so we already have the red here. That's it. We're already set to go to the next stitch with those few little changes. All right, so let's do this next one, and then we'll look at all of these together. All right, here we go. Oh, that's a pretty one too. And this white on the yellow is really a good choice. Sunny picked out the color of the 100% cotton that we're going to use today. You can kind of get a glimpse of those right now as we're looking at them. These are the two we've done so far. We started with the green stitch, and then we went to the red one. And the next one we're going to do now is the yellow stitch. And you can see there's no difference. This is our lock stitch right over here. and a little bit of bunching on the back. So I reduced the presser foot pressure, but I may not have reduced it enough because we're still getting a little bit of bunching on the back of the material. And that happens when you're sewing with a real light material like this cotton. We're going to keep marching forward. Now, unless I missed it, our porn person has not popped back in the live stream for a while. I haven't seen him anyway. So it's possible that YouTube has already read my report and they've already flagged that person. Yeah, I agree, Anders. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. And again, you could not have gotten this result with that cracked cam stack and the filthiness of the machine. Again, that's always the reality when you buy a machine, say at an estate sale or somewhere else, where it hasn't been properly serviced, like in the workshop. You're going to have certain problems that you inherit, aren't you? So, but that's okay. That's why the workshop is here. All right, so we just did the red stitch. Now we're going to go to the yellow stitch. So I'm going to give the stitch selector a click to yellow. Okay, and we have to get this into the yellow range. Our stitch length controller into the yellow range. And again, we've got some discretion here. You can see we have some discretion in the yellow range. So if I go further this way, it's going to be longer. If I go further this way, it's going to be quite a bit shorter. So we're going to do probably right around there, right on the edge of that. And again, you might choose to go further than that. And depending on your setup, if you're using embroidery thread in particular, you'll be able to take that range down to a much shorter range than we are with our current setup. And then finally, our stitch width control is already in the yellow rainbow range. So we're good to go. So yellow, yellow, and yellow. And again, we're going to be going for that yellow stitch that is in view there, right there, the second from the right. I don't know what you folks would call that stitch. It's kind of almost got like a jaggedness to it, doesn't it? Kind of a jagged look. Yeah, kind of a cool looking stitch. And again, Anders told me that he's already picked up the other cams for this machine. So he's going to have an incredible selection of decorative ornamental stitches that he will be able to sew with this Model 2000. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, give a listen to this machine. Again, we're doing the yellow stitch now. We only have one more stitch to do. Now, notice what all of a sudden is happening. Look at that material. See, it's going back and forth very rapidly. Kind of goes two spaces forward, 3 back, 2 forward, 3 back, etc. That's the tri-motion feature on this. And it gives you incredible capabilities in generating stitches because of how the feed dogs are manipulating that material. Now, that's our first attempt at sewing that stitch, which looks really good. But we may manipulate it a little bit more and see what we think. Can make it a little bit longer or a little bit shorter and get a different look to it. So this is the one, whoops. Getting so excited here, I didn't clip the other threads. There we go. Now I got it. So this is the one we just did. This is the yellow stitch on cam D. Make sure I have it orientated right. Yes, I do. So you can look here. Let's see if that. I was waiting to see if the light on the camera would help or hurt. It actually seems to throw it off a little bit. Trying to see if the camera is focused on it. I'm going to turn that light on. Even though it's going to give us a little bit of a waver, it's going to highlight that stitch a little bit better with that light proper on. All right, let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch on this one that we just sewed off. And again, our setup is not absolutely ideal. We would want to go with a smaller needle if we're doing a lot of decorative ornamental stitching like this. And we would want to use a higher quality thread than this Coats and Clark all-purpose thread. But even in spite of the limitations of our setup, Anders' machine is still doing an outstanding job. And again, we're looking at the lock stitch right now. We're looking at the lock stitch. So let's do our final stitch on Cam D. Let's do our final stitch on Cam D and see what we think of that one. All right, let's get this set up for the last stitch on Cam D, which is the blue stitch all the way here on the far right. So again, we started all the way on the other side with the green. We went red, we went yellow, and now we're going to do the blue stitch. So we have to set up the stitch selector for blue. And again, when you're doing this, make sure you have your needle out because you can see what happens to that needle when I'm turning this. See that? So if you have your needle in the material while you're changing the stitch selector or some of these other knobs as well, you could have a bent needle on your hand. So we're going to go blue there. And again, on the stitch selector, you don't have any discretion. But when we get over to the stitch length selector, now we've got some discretion here where we can go longer or shorter. So I'm going to shorten it just a little bit. I'm going to get down to right about, what would that be? It'd be about 3.5, wouldn't it? Pretty close to 3.5. And we're already on blue down here, so we don't have to do a thing with that one. So blue and blue and blue. And again, that was Colormatic's motivation is make it simple. Make it simple. Match the colors between the three knobs and you're ready to rock and roll. All right, let's do this last stitch off on Cam D, and then we might do a little bit more leather sewing. We still have enough time. Anders is not scheduled to be here for over an hour, so not that we're going to go another hour, but it gives you an idea we've got some time to work with. So, all right, our final stitch off from the Cam side of the house. Again, Cam D, stitch blue, whatever the sucker would be called. We'll see. Here we go. You can see this one is also a tri-motion stitch. It's manipulating the material with those feed dogs. We'll stop right there. It's a lovely stitch, lovely, lovely stitch. All right, let's take a look at this last stitch that we just did. Kind of tilting that light a little bit so we have a little bit better light on there, but not too much. Let me see if that helps. No, it's better with the camera light off. Let's shut that off. Move this out here a little bit more. There we go. That's actually better lighting there, isn't it? Much better lighting. This camera is not a big fan of white thread on yellow cotton, though. The sharpness of it, if we were to sew this on a red material, would be the clarity of the stitch would be even more evident on camera. You can see it easily when you're looking at it, but when you're trying to see it on camera, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. All right, lock stitch. I've been staring at that for a while. You guys are going to go blind. I'm going to grab my sew-off holder real quick and just see if from the front it's even easier to see this, depending on how the lighting is working. That's horrible with that lighting, isn't it? Oh my gosh. We are really having a battle with this lighting today. It's probably because of the lighter material. It's creating a little bit more of a challenge, isn't it? I wish I could eliminate that rolling factor, but the lighting really, really can play havoc with this camera sometimes. Yeah, even with the waving on the camera, that's a whole lot easier to see. But again, I think if it were a darker material, it would be even easier to see it, or a darker thread. A darker thread would be helpful too. This again is our lock stitch. So, Cam D, I'm glad that Anders has the other cams as well. Cam D is a good cam, but one of my favorite cams for this machine is Cam B. And so I'm glad that Anders was able to get a hold of, and I asked him to bring those cams because, again, when you get into the different Colormatic Series machines, there can be incompatibility between some cams that look similar, but they don't match. When you look at the cam itself, the cam should match the pattern that's on the machine. So if you have a Cam D that's for Colormatics and it doesn't match these stitches, then that should be an indication to you that the cam may not have full compatibility with the machine. Now, that doesn't mean the cam won't work in the machine. It will, because again, that finger is going to read the bumps on it, regardless of whether or not it was designed originally for this 2000 or a later version. But you may not get absolute lineup as far as the stitch quality. And again, the key with some of these tri-motion stitches like we just did is that material is going back and forth, back and forth. When that material goes back, that needle needs to be hitting exactly the same spot that it did on the swing forward. If it doesn't, you get distortion as far as the stitch patterns. All right, what should we do now? I think we haven't done a 3-point zigzag yet. Let's go ahead and see if we can move into that. We'll do a 3-point zigzag, I think. And we can do it around this little circle of saddle grade leather. We'll kind of go in a circle on this. I'll try to walk it around the edge, and I'll probably use our slow gear for this so I can do it a little bit more easily. All right, so I'm going to engage that slow gear. Let's walk around this saddle grade leather and see what we think. Oh, goodness. Oh, this is funny. This is interesting. Hold on a second. All right, I'm gonna keep moving forward. Hold on a second. I forgot to make a chain setting on it. Hold on. All right, this is going to be take 2 now. One of the beauties and one of the curses of live streams. All right, I'm going to try this again. Here we go. Stop right there. All right, let's slow it down now. That's about as far as I can go. Isn't that fun? Can you see that in the shot, hopefully? And what I did is I still had the cam activated when I started. That's why I had that little glitch on the end over here. But then I moved it into I decided to go with a standard zigzag instead of a 3-point. And it absolutely is a spectacular display stitch, isn't it? Very, very nice. The only thing I'm seeing is I didn't bump up the upper tension. I took it back down when we did the other sew off on the cotton. I forgot to bump it back up. So our lock stitch is weak. Our lock stitch is weak on some of these. Take a look at those. Yeah, it's not horrible, but it's definitely weak. So this again is saddle grade leather. Standard zigzag. We started with something different. I kind of moved into the zigzag. And with the benefit, I started on the outer rings with regular speed, and then I took it into the slow gear, and I was able to wind it in. I probably could have wound it in even a little bit more than I did, but I didn't do that. And it's funny when you don't, there's nothing spectacular about this, but when you have a machine that's stitching well with this top stitch, it almost becomes art, even when you do something real simple and basic like this. Kind of fun. But the not so fun thing is when you're sewing with a universal needle and you don't adjust the tension from having sewn with cotton with ornamental stitching, and you don't bump up that upper tension back up again to accommodate for leather like this, you get a very, very weak lock stitch. I'll show you what I mean. It's not ridiculously horrible, but it's also not spectacular. I would consider it to be a provisional page 34. Through the inner parts, we did okay as we were stitching with the slow gear, but on the outer parts, as we were pushing it to a higher speed, we got a loosey-goosey type lock stitch, and that's strictly a product of the upper tension not pulling up hard enough, not pulling up hard enough to define that zigzag. It's easy to fix, but it's also easy to miss as you're going through a wide field of sew-offs like this and you're changing material types. So, especially when you're on camera, you kind of go fudgy brain sometimes. But the top stitch is exactly what we want to be seeing. And saddle grade leather is not an easy sew off either. Probably about 3 to 4 ounces of leather if you look at it from the side. So, all in all, really good. I'm very pleased with that. Okay, so let's see what we have next. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick because we're at over 2 hours already. And I know time goes quick when we're together, but at the same time, I want to be sensitive to everybody's schedules on a Saturday too. Oh, that's another factor that I have to take into as well. It's the only problem with these tabs is they're really hard to get to. They're really awkward. They're really awkward to get to. Let me set that right there. Yeah, I'm going to increase that swing on that take up spring just a little bit. Remember me talking about this take up spring and the range of motion that it can move. Right now we're set more on the middle range. I'm going to increase this just a little bit more. If you look real close, watch that take up spring. This take up spring right here. I'm using clippers to do this with, not the ideal tool. See it coming down? So if we're sewing real light materials, this is where we would have this take-up spring is on a much lower range so that it's not swinging as far and it's not creating as much tension on that, especially if we're sewing with like rayon thread or some of the silk threads as well are a lot more delicate. We don't want this take-up spring creating as much stress on that thread, so we move it down into this lighter range where it's not going to be stressing that thread as much. But when we're wanting to sew something heavier, we've got to move that so it's more full range again. So I'm going to move it back up slow but sure. And right now it's at full range for heavier type materials. So you can see that's a nice feature on these Husqvarnas is you can control how far that take-up spring is going to move depending on your thread setup and depending on the weight of the sewing that you're doing. Heavier thread and heavier material, you want a more full range of that take-up spring like it is right now. Lighter materials, we gauge it down so that it's only going this far, much more limited. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. There we go. I just bumped up our presser foot pressure a little bit too. All right, what we haven't sewn yet is some of this genuine elk hide. Let's give this a go. And if you haven't seen the elk hide sewn on this channel before, look at the thickness of that. Probably about 5 ounces, approximately. Yeah, don't hit any deer, Anders, please. Don't hit any deer. All right. Let's go down this elk hide, see what we think. Here we go. Okay, so elk hide, 4 or 5 ounces of leather. Let's take a look at this. And we're going to wrap up here pretty doggone quick. Once this camera decides to focus. So this is our genuine elk hide. Yes, I am showing you the top side first. Had to double check. Especially off across the top here. I love the presentation of those stitches across the top part of the leather. Make sure the camera's angled correctly. It's trying to focus on my jacket, I think. me grab that stitch off holder again. That may be our best bet for looking at these stitches today. And it could be the light coming in from the outside of the workshop as well. It's hard to say, but it's not cooperating with us hugely right now. Some beautiful, beautiful stitching that Anders machine from 1965 just did on this genuine elk hide. And again, depending on where you cut the piece of leather from the elk hide, the density factor of that leather could be very, very different because this is put in a chemical bath. It's chemically processed, and it really, really causes some of the areas of that hide to become very, very almost like cement. And I picked a piece today that was a little bit on the harder side. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. And again, look at from the side what we just went through. We went through a belt. We literally went through a belt. Now, let me turn this around. We'll look at that lock stitch. Let's see if we finally have that upper tension a little bit more in balance. I think we're still a little bit on the weak side for especially sewing a leather of this density, but we're getting closer as far as that sweet balance between the upper and lower tension. A little bit closer. Oh, our porno knucklehead is back. If the moderators want to go ahead and flag him. So I think we could still be a little bit higher on that upper tension, or maybe even backing that bobbin case off just a little bit might be the right move. Yeah, we could go a little bit higher in that upper tension to define this even better. It's not a bad lock stitch, but it could be better. Kind of look at it like this too. It kind of gives you a different perspective. All right, I won't belabor the point. We've got some really good looking stitching, but I think we could make it even better with some tension adjustments on this 2000. And again, when Husqvarna went through different evolutions of changing their upper tension units, they all respond a little bit differently depending on your setup, depending on the thread type and everything else you're working with. So as Anders spends more time with this machine than I've had the opportunity to, he's going to get that balance much, much better than I will as someone that's only using the machine for a brief period of time. But the stitching we've done so far is really, really, I think, highlighted how beautifully this machine is sewing right now, whether it's the cam generated stitches that we did, these over here, or the leather sewing that we've done on Anders' machine as well, saddle grade leather. Genuine elk hide, and then also this saddle grade leather we did here where we were stitching around, showing the control you can get with that slow gear. So I don't plan on doing as much of a sewing Olympics on this Model 2000 as I've done on some of the other Swedish beauties, but we'll do a couple more stitch offs with it just for fun. And I think for sure we got to do some bubblegum material. And if you're new to the channel as far as bubblegum material, this is why I call it that. It's got a high concentration of vinyl in it, and it's used for almost snapped myself with that. It's used for covering different, probably furniture pieces would be its main application, but it's a really strong, durable type material. So we'll see what we think of this stuff. And of course, we got to sew it with something probably that's going to press the machine a little bit harder. Let's see what we'll sew with it. Why don't we do a green stitch? I'm going to do one of the green stitches on this, I think. Yeah, I agree, Michelle. I think the stitching is doing really well. Just trying to find the balance point today is giving a little bit more of a challenge than it sometimes does. Let's see here. Yeah, let's do the green stitch. I think we'll do that one. So we're actually going to be sewing a decorative stitch on this bubblegum material. I think that is probably the ultimate challenge that we could put this machine through. If it can manage a sew up, and I don't need this much material, do I? I kind of went crazy on the material size here. Let's cut this down a ways. Let's see how it manages a high concentration of vinyl in this bubblegum material in executing an ornamental type stitch like this green stitch. Here we go. Do I have it so short that it's not moving? I might have it set too short. Let's see. No, it's moving. It's barely moving. Barely moving. You know, the one thing I do like about this vinyl based material is it really responds well when you're talking about needle swing type patterns. You can see that in the shot. Probably one of the prettiest stitch offs that we've gotten on Anders' machine so far. We've gotten a number of really lovely ones, but I really like the way that the machine handles what otherwise would be a real tricky sew off with this material. Real tricky. And part of the contrast, Emma, what a great statement to make. Part of that contrast is we're going with a material color that really highlights that thread even nicer. The contrast between threaded material really is a science that I have not mastered. But as you go through the different thread color options, especially when you get into some of the embroidery threads, choosing that material that's going to marry up with it nicely is really essential. Really essential as we're working with materials like this. Now, what are we going to see on the lock stitch? Again, we're dealing with a high vinyl concentration on this material, this bubblegum material, and that lock stitch is absolutely a page 34 plus. Exactly what we want to be seeing. That's our lock stitch. That's impressive. It's not easy for most machines to manage a material like this because of that high concentration of vinyl. But this Husqvarna from 1965 actually seems to thrive with some of the more challenging material choices that I've made. So I'm incredibly pleased with that. With that result, we might as well just stitch a couple more of these patterns from Cam D on this vinyl material and see what we think. I'm a little bit nervous about trying a tri-motion stitch because of the vinyl factor, but we'll give it a try anyway. Give it a go. All right, presser foot is down. I think I'm fairly straight. I think that's fairly straight. All right, let's choose another one of the stitches. We just did the green one. We could try the red one. The red one makes me a little bit nervous, but we'll give it a go. So we're going to set our stitch length controller on red. We've already got our stitch, our stitch selector on red, excuse me. I think I said that wrong. Our stitch selector is on red now. Our stitch length knob is also already in the red range, the red-green range. Goodness gravy, this person is back again. They are relentless, huh? And then finally, our stitch width is also in the red range as well. So we'll give this one a try, see what we think. See what we think of this one. See how the machine is able to manage a more demanding stitch on a real slippery, challenging material like this bubblegum material. All right, let's see what we get. Here we go. And I was mistaken. This particular stitch pattern does not have tri-motion. Does not have tri-motion. All right, we'll stop right about there. Yeah, I like that one too. That one's lovely, isn't it? Can you see that in the shot? So these are the two we've done so far, and you can ignore the fact that I didn't sew as straight as I probably could have. I was kind of looking at the computer screen too, just curious to see how quickly one of our moderators would take action on this very persistent smut promoter. And I didn't see who jumped on him right away. Yeah, I agree, Sonny. Just such puny brain people, and I hope they're listening right now because Yeah, for you to invade a group like this where we're focused on vintage, quality, it's a family-friendly environment, you're just a loser. You're just a loser. And the moderators are gonna be relentless in continuing to slam you until you finally give up. So this is the one we just did right here. Um, this again is the red stitch on cam D. And it's going to look really, really similar with the length settings that I chose on this vinyl material. It'll look very, very similar, almost identical to that other stitch. Very, very similar. You can give our friend a timeout, y'all. Give our friend a timeout. And our lock stitch. Camera's having trouble focusing today. I don't know what it is. It's probably the distraction of this knucklehead that is relentless about trying to disrupt our live stream. Beautiful, beautiful stitching on this heavily concentrated vinyl material. Kind of hold that in place. Yeah, based on the stitch length settings that I selected, the stitches look really, really similar, and they're not. They're not similar at all. They're very different, actually. So it just goes to show you your selections and your stitch width and stitch length, or stitch length in this case, can really, really mask the appearance of some of these stitches. All right, now let's go to the final stitch that we'll do on this bubblegum material. Let's go ahead and do a blue stitch, I think. Let's go ahead and do a blue stitch. Yeah, we'll do a blue stitch next. All right, here we go. This will be our final stitch on this bubblegum material. All right, here we go. And this is one of the tri-motion stitches. Let me get a little bit closer. Watch those feed dogs manipulate this material. It's a little bit out of focus. I'm having trouble with the focus on the camera today. Let's try it right there. Yeah, I think that'll be a little bit better. All right, here we go. Oh, you're going to love seeing this stitch. The way it presents on this blue bubblegum material really makes it pop beautifully. It makes it pop so much nicer than the lighter cotton material. And that's simply a product of the material color. It's strictly a product of the material color. Well, you can get a glimpse of it right there. That's absolutely spectacular. Absolutely what we want to be seeing. And again, it goes back to, as it's executing a stitch like this with that tri-motion, as it's executing a stitch with that tri-motion and the material is being moved back and forth very rapidly, that needle needs to be hitting that same spot every single time to give the clarity of stitch pattern that you see here. Otherwise, it'd be real muddied looking. If you've ever seen some machines do decorative stitching and the stitch pattern just looks muddy, it doesn't look like it really is sharp. This one is totally different. It's got that clarity of stitch pattern because that tri-motion is in perfect sync. It's like a dance. As you're taking a step forward and back, your foot should be hitting that same spot going back and forth. And that's exactly what Anders' machine is doing beautifully here. And if we had even a better setup with a higher quality thread and a smaller needle than a size 9014, you could even enhance this even beyond where it is right now, if you can imagine that. But we've got a stitch output that really, really reflects this Swedish beauty to the standard that we would expect. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Sonny. Like a waltz. What a beautiful description you just gave. Like a waltz. Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, let's not get too excited because we're looking at the top stitch, right? And the top stitch is always going to be easier for a machine to execute, especially with a less than ideal setup and with material like this that has such a high concentration of vinyl in it. Let's see how we did on the lock stitch. Let's see if we found that sweet balance finally with our tension challenges that we've encountered a couple of times with different material sew-offs. Let's see how we did on that. Once I cut the threads, we'll see. Yeah, if you're not used to sewing vinyl type materials, boy, they can be a booger sometimes. So here again is our top stitch. You guys have already seen this. Maybe I should just put it on our stitch off holder to make it easier for me to get one of my little clips. I think I have one of my clips over here. Yeah, I was hopeful that you ladies had intimidated this person enough that they weren't going to come back, but they are relentless, aren't they? They are just relentless, trying to pitch their stuff. I better clip it on the bottom. I'll hold it on the bottom, actually. So this again is our top stitch. We'll take a quick look at this, and then we'll move on to the lock stitch. It's probably trying to focus on my fingers. Let's see here. Ah. All right, it's a beautiful top stitch. You guys can see that. Let me set the camera down. Let's get it set up for the lock stitch now. Turn it around. That actually would be smarter, as I could just do it like this with two clips. All right, let's do it like this. This will be a little bit easier. This is our lock stitch again. I should have done that with the other side. All right, let's take a look at the lock stitch now. Again, this is the last pattern we just did down here with the tri-motion. This material is really tricky to sew. And this model 2000 from 1965 did a brilliant job of managing this material, and not just with a basic stitch, but with a couple of different decorative stitches and then also a tri-motion stitch as well. So definitely a page 34 plus. Very impressed that it was able to manage a sew off as challenging and as tricky as this material. Not an easy sew off at all. And it maintained beautiful stitch balance between the lock stitch and also the top stitch as well. So I'm going to throw that to the back. We don't have a huge sew off sandwich compared to sometimes, but you know what? That's what we've done on this live stream back here today. And I think that's pretty doggone good, especially considering the live stream has gone longer because I didn't have the machine set up, and I did that intentionally so I could show you the bobbin winding and the threading in the machine as well. But it really has done a brilliant job, especially considering it arrived at the workshop in critical condition, the broken cam stack and a number of the other features on the machine frozen in time because of how filthy the machine was. I'm reading Sunny's comment, and she's absolutely right. Probably I mean a just a real gross person on the other end trying to peddle their porn, you know? They don't have a chance against you ladies. I'm almost inclined to make Michelle another moderator so that we've got just an army of moderators that are just slamming these knuckleheads that won't stop. They won't stop. I mean, they're just go peddle your crap somewhere else. We don't want it here. We deal with quality, high standard stuff on this channel with vintage folks and vintage machines. And yeah, it's just a huge contrast to what they're peddling. Huge contrast. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we? The only thing I didn't sew, we've done leather, we've done a variety of other materials. We didn't sew this fake leather. Should we give this a go? This is that naga hide stuff or whatever it is. I think I have the term right. Naga hide, is that right? I think it's the fake stuff that they used to put on chairs all the time. It looks like leather, but it's not. This also has a high concentration of vinyl also on it, like the other materials we just sewed. So we could try giving this a go too, not with a basic straight or a zigzag, but we could also do a cam generated stitch on this stuff too. How long have we been going? Yeah, we've been going a long time, you guys. We'll just do a couple quick stitch offs with this naga hide stuff. Yep, Emma's saying I got it right. With this naga hide stuff, and then we'll wrap up this live stream, which will probably frustrate our smut master because then you ladies can't throw him into jail anymore. Him or her. I assume it's a guy. I assume it's a guy to be that relentless, but you never know. Some of the sadly, when you watch the news feeds, some of the people that get arrested by the FBI for human trafficking of women, some of those highest ranking people in those organizations are women exploiting women. What's up with that? So we don't know if it's a guy or a gal, but you guys can just keep throwing them into jail. Who are the moderators here right now? I think Paula disappeared. Hopefully she's okay. I think our moderators here right now are Emma and Sunny. So I'm going to ask for an impromptu vote. I want to ask for an impromptu vote. Ladies, would you support, would you approve me making Michelle a moderator so that if one of you ladies can't make it, we've got more in our army of leaders to watch what's going on in the live stream while I'm busy at the machine. If you ladies, if Sunny and Emma approve of Michelle becoming a moderator, I'd like to make her a moderator because she's very engaged. She's high valued like we are, and she's got a hammer to slam this person if they come back again. What do you guys think? Emma says yes. Sunny, will you approve Michelle becoming a moderator also? Okay, that's two approvals. I'm doing it right now. So now we've added another leader to the team. And you will notice now where before Michelle's screen name did not have a wrench, the next time she types something, it should have a wrench. The more we have in our leadership team to watch out for people, we've never had this issue before. We've never had this issue before. Now all of a sudden we do. Really disappointing. But you know what? We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. All right, let's do the blue stitch again. Let's do the blue stitch again on this Naugahyde stuff. Naugahyde, Naugahyde, Naugahyde. I don't see that. I don't. Michelle just typed something. It must take a little bit for YouTube to actuate it because I did make her a moderator, but it's not. Oh, there we go. There we go. There's the wrench. And you ladies have my blessing to whack this troll with your wrench or hammer if they present themselves again. Matter of fact, if you ladies want to let Michelle whack them this time, that would be cool. All right, here we go. Almost done. All right. So this again is our Naugahyde. It's a fake leather. It's a fake leather material. Wow. I'm liking this. Beautiful stitch presentation. Boy, is that gorgeous. Very, very nice. Let me get this out of there and we'll check that lock stitch to see how it managed the lock stitch. Again, this has almost like a, I don't know what you'd call this. It almost has like a layer on the back of it that you would see on furniture type materials. So along with the vinyl, it's also thrown another thing into the mix here on this Naugahyde stuff. There it is on the back. You can see that stuff. It's almost like a felt material or something on the backing of this. Beautiful output. Let's do another stitch. We'll linger just a little bit longer. We'll linger just a little bit longer to see if this knucklehead comes back and Michelle can throw him into the 300-minute jail. And then we'll do some research as a team afterwards and see if we can figure out what the process is to block someone. I've done it before, but I haven't done it in a long time. Haven't done it in a long time. Haven't had any need to. Just haven't had any need to. All right, what should we do next? We did the blue stitch. We could do the yellow stitch, I suppose, or the red stitch or the green stitch. I'll do green next. Okay, we'll do the green one next. Let's do this one. So if the smut master is watching right now and sitting in the shadows, go ahead and step back in. I don't want to entice you to step back in, but Michelle is ready to slam you. Michelle is ready to slam you. So just go ahead, and if you want to roll with it, we're ready to roll with you. All right, here we go. The green stitch. The green stitch. Don't think that vintage people are weak. You don't even want to go down that road. That would, yeah. Don't even go there. All right. Oh, my stitch length is too short. Let's try that again. I don't think I'm moving. I'm not moving. It's too tight. All right, let's skip that pattern. Oh my gosh, look what I did. I had it too short. See that? That's what happens when you make a pattern too short. All right, let's try that one again. Let me try that one again. See if I can get it right this time. See if I can get it right this time. Maybe, maybe. All right. Yeah, I don't think I better try that pattern. I don't think so. It started to come out, but yeah, we'll stop while we're ahead on this Naugahyde stuff. We'll stop while we're ahead. Could also have a needle that I've gotten a barb on too. So, all right, we're going to stop there. We're going to stop there. This stuff is nasty, nasty material to sew. All right. All right, let's look at our sew offs for this live stream, and then we will wrap this up. So on this live stream, we did this one, and I had everything set up properly, and it did really, really well. Then we did the bubblegum material with a variety of different patterns and got a great result. Again, did the saddle grade leather, kind of sewing with a slow gear and showing the control of the material as we were going around it. Did really well. Had to make some tension issue adjustments on it to address that. But that was also a great success. We did the elk hide as well. Again, this is real thick stuff. And this 1965 Model 2000 managed both the lock stitch and the top stitch well. Again, when you're working with a machine like this, you might have to make some tension adjustments. And we kind of sewed in a circle with a zigzag, created a little bit of a, I don't know if it's ready for the Smithsonian, but you know what? Get rid of some of the imperfection in it. It's a good looking stitch output from this machine. And again, we had a little bit of an issue with the balancing of the lock stitch, but that's a tension factor because I had it set for a cotton material, much lighter. And then finally, we sewed this 100% cotton material. We did all of the stitches that are on Cam D, and we got some really good. I think it actually shows better back here. We got some really good stitch output from this Model 2000 from 1965. You can see all of Cam D represented there, all of Cam D. Yeah. So we will, before I get all crazy and start doing other weird things to try to put this machine to the test, I think we've adequately tested this machine. And I'm going to give it the approval to go home with Anders, who should be here in about 30 minutes. So I'll have a little bit of time to change out the needle, put a fresh needle in. I think we've got a barb on this needle right now. And we will continue to move forward. On the other workbench right now, I'm right in the middle of, I'll show you real quick. I'm right in the middle of working on this project from Indiana. That's as close as I can get because camera doesn't reach that far. But right now I'm in the middle of working in this 130-6. This is the one, if you watch Facebook, this is the one that fell from about 4 feet up and hit a hard kitchen floor. And the machine on the left is the one I'm rebuilding. The one on the right is the donor machine, the parts machine that I'm pulling parts from. So, but slowly but surely, I'll get this 130-6 done, and then you'll see this coming up for a live stream or a premiere, and then it'll be heading back to Lafayette, Indiana, which is where Debbie Brown is from. And Debbie has been very patient as I've been working to get parts for this machine. I was trying to piecemeal it, and I finally said, that's enough. I'm just going to buy another FOF 130-6 that is in disrepair and pull parts from it. And that's sometimes the best result when you've got a number of damaged parts from a machine falling from 4 feet up. You can imagine 4 feet onto a hard floor. It definitely is not a perfect scenario to bless a vintage machine with good outcomes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, Paula's back. Yeah. You can get into a huddle with Sonny and with Emma and with Michelle, and they can kind of give you an idea of what's been going on. Oh my gosh. This is also set up for a chat replay. So Paula, you'll be able to scroll back up and look at the chat. These ladies have been really busy in this live stream mitigating a knucklehead. I'll let them explain more. But yeah, wow. Okay, so let me set the camera up so that we can get a different angle shot here. Paula's getting excited now. Paula's going, a troll? There was a troll. Where was I? There's a troll. And Paula's already reaching into the workbench. Wait. Yep. Where's the troll? Yep. Troll. I'm beating up this instruction manual. This is not the customer's. This is mine. Oh, man. What a hoot. All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'm not going to show you anything else on this machine right now. I think we've covered the bases. I'll crank up a little bit of music if y'all want to chat for a little bit longer and kind of, you never know, this troll might show up again, and then it'll be up to which one of you ladies want to, yeah, go get him. Or her. I don't know which it is. I don't know which a girl or a guy, but, all right. Troll smashing music. Well, thank you again to all that joined this live stream today, whether you came early or late, or whether you had to leave and come back. I know Eddie was here, one of the first ones here, and he had to step away. And hundreds of people, as I said to Paula the other night, hundreds of people will end up jumping in and watching this after the fact. And that's fine. I get it. It's a weekend. It's probably a beautiful day where you are. Unless you're in Florida, then you may be getting rain. But enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Saturday. And we will hope that our troll doesn't come back. But you know what? We added one more person to our moderating team today, one more person to our leadership team today, Michelle, and we are a force to be reckoned with. So if that troll comes back or another troll comes back, I know we're going to be ready for them, because they don't have any reason to be doing what they're doing on our channel, right? Okay.
So I got to get ready for Anders. Anders will be here very shortly. I got to replace the needle, do a couple other things, get this machine ready to go home back to where Anders is from. I want to say Anders is from Michigan, but I may have that wrong. So God bless you guys. Watch out for those trolls. Watch out for those trolls. Oh, we actually, okay. Wow, we bent the needle a little bit. That's weird. There we go. Fresh needle, fresh needle, fresh needle.
Oh my gosh, he came back again. The person came back again. Oh, goodness gravy. That's kind of what we're looking into right now, Paula. Well, everybody have a great weekend. Thank you again to the moderators that were mitigating the knucklehead, and I hope it's a one off and we don't have this person come back again. But if anyone gets any insights in researching this through YouTube channels to see how we can permanently block someone, I was clicking on a couple of different things. I know I did it once before, but it's been so long. So just text me or send me any insights you have, and we'll see if we can just block this person. Otherwise, it becomes pretty labor intensive to keep throwing them in timeout, but it's kind of fun too. All right, take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye now. If the shoe tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Passing the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. Well, congratulations to Andy Anders.